Hello, Kyle. This is Mark Torres with the Came from the Radio. We are at the 6th annual Emcon Anime Fest. I'm actually behind the camera, so you can't see me right now, but we're recording this on our YouTube page, so we'll send you the link, obviously. Thank you for being here. Everybody give Kyle a big round of applause. All right, so what we'll do is, I guess you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your craft, because I know voice acting is a lot different than regular acting, correct?
Yes, pardon me. So I'm Kyle Hebert, and I've been doing voice acting since 2000 on a professional level. Before that, I was a DJ, and in voice acting, obviously, you take away the physicality, you know, relying on your expressions as you would in theater and on camera and everything. And you have to channel that all, obviously, through your voice. While there is some physicality in the booth, it's not nearly as much as you know, on camera and on stage. It's a very freeing aspect to not have to worry about placement and memorizing dialogue and you know, doing all that. And I think the really main thing is you're not limited by how you look. Your appearance doesn't factor in at all. In voice acting, it's are you a good actor? And a lot of people usually confuse voice acting with doing impressions, or they think it's just not really acting. They'll say kind of quite innocently, it's like, have you ever done any real acting? And it's like, well, it's all acting. Voice acting is a type of acting, the same as this on camera, on stage, all that. It's just very different. And for me, it's always personally been the most fascinating one, using the theater of the mind to unlock different emotions and help build a character in the listener's mind, or the viewer's mind in the case of what I do professionally, or what I'm most known for, is providing an English voice for a Japanese medium. But that's always fascinating to me. That's what the allure of radio was for me to become a DJ first. I ended up getting a broadcast degree. Working in radio, I always liked the notion of I love music too. So I love you know, playing music and thinking about this larger than life thing, and then you grow up, get a degree, and get an internship at a radio network, and then you find out, okay, well, maybe it's not that magical, but it's still a ton of fun. And then when I felt that my radio bug had run its course, I still said, all right, I still want to do voiceover. And you know, I got very lucky. In 2000, I heard about auditions at Funimation for a little tiny show called Dragon Ball Z, and I went in and auditioned for that, and I got cast within a couple of weeks. Started doing bit parts, and then eventually I got parts I'm known for from that show, which are teenage/adult Gohan. And then shortly after that, I took over as the narrator, and then I got Ox King, and then some other characters in the show. And that led to other things. I've been in Los Angeles since 2005, and here I am today.
So you're in Los Angeles right now?
Yes.
How is the weather over there?
It's beautiful. It's 98% beautiful all the time. When it rains, it's rare. Clouds are even kind of rare. But yeah, the weather is magical. I know people from the East Coast and other people are like, I like seasons and all that. It's like, well, yeah, I like that too, you know. I like snow and all that. Snow's something you never see here. Rain is rare. But the beauty is certainly, you know, just going outside and it's like, wow, it sure is bright today.
So let me ask you, well, first of all, let me ask you about your DJ career. Can you give us a good old-fashioned DJ voice announcing something?
All right, yes, it's Radio Disney. Here's the latest from Miley Cyrus, followed by the Jonas Brothers. Oh yeah, that's kind of what I was doing back then.
Awesome. We got a little applause for that? No? Oh, there we go. Trying to get so when you're working for animation that's dubbed, right? Do you actually look at the other person's performance and try to imitate that, or do you try to make it on your own?
That depends on how I'm directed. There have been cases where they say, don't imitate what they're doing in Japanese, and others would be like, yeah, stick as close as you can to it. What we do in the booth before we perform each line is we'll preview it in Japanese. Not so much that we can imitate it, but that we understand the context of the scene. Because you can see the word printed, no, on the page. But there's a million ways you can deliver no, 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 you know, all the different stuff. So you have to figure out, okay, what is the character doing when they say no? So we watch the scene with that line, and then we have the starting gun, so we know when to actually start voice acting, is the beeps. We have beep, 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 and the fourth imaginary beep. Then you start the line or reaction. There's a ton of reactions, as you know. Anyone watches anime knows that every character always goes, huh? What? All that stuff's scripted too. Every reaction, every sound, down to the frame. We have a reference video in the studio, and the writers use this too. The episode has a number, a time code built into the, it's burned into the corner so that every single frame, when you hit pause and hit advance frame by frame, the numbers go up. So the writer's able to use that as a reference, notating at what point does the character start doing anything. Reacting, punching, getting hit, crying, breathing. All this stuff is noted on the script. Everything's done in order. If I voice multiple characters in a show, we'll simply go through the entire episode as one character, and then we'll start a brand new recording file in the system and go back to the beginning of the episode and then cycle through for the next character. Once in a while, I've been characters that actually talk to each other. That's fun. In Dragon Ball Z, Weskai and Pikkon kind of interact, because Weskai brings Pikkon to the Otherworld tournament, for example. And that's fun too. And that doesn't happen too often because directors and producers are noticeably and understandably skittish about it sounding too much like, oh, this is all one person doing everything. So even though I have a wide range, that doesn't happen too often.
So when you do play against yourself as it is, have you ever gotten confused and used the wrong voice or the wrong character?
Luckily, no. There's no confusion because we do one character at a time. However, if I'm confused about, oh, I don't remember this character, they'll take a reference file. They'll save audio clip from the previous recording of that character, and they'll play it. And they'll usually have me repeat what the character's saying, so they make sure I can still imitate the voice. It's like, fight you, I want to kill you. And then I spit it back to them, fight you, I want to kill you. It's like, okay, they're not only making sure I can get into voice, but the engineer is testing the levels on the mic, making sure there's a consistent sound level for the recording.
Do you speak Japanese at all? So are you able to understand what they're saying?
Not a lick. Not a lick. But that's okay, because not even the writers speak Japanese. It's translated from Japanese into the English equivalent, and then the writers who adapt it into the scripts that we use take the rough English and craft it into something conversational that's faithful to the original translation. And then sometimes it'll be scripted a little too much or a little too little. Maybe it's off by a flap or two. Remember that when we're dubbing, we have to match the flaps. There's a certain amount of lip sync involved. So the words have to reflect what's going on there. I know I'm exaggerating the pauses just to show you that, you know, sometimes maybe a line may be overwritten or underwritten because the writer speaks quicker than the actor who's doing the parts. So what do we do in the moment? If we have to reevaluate the line and change it, we'll do that. But typically, we stick to what is scripted. But no, I don't speak any Japanese at all.
And I'm also aware that you do a lot of video game voices, right?
Yes. Most recently we had Bravely Second come out, which is Bravely Default 2. I'm Ominous Crow in that. And then the big AAA title that came out a month or two back was Street Fighter V, so I'm back as Ryu in that.
So when, there we go.
Thank you. Good.
So when you do reprise a character in an English-speaking role, and you don't have to dub anything, you don't have a translation, is it easier for you to just figure out this is better to do that voice for a video game as opposed to doing it for dubbing?
No, because when auditions happen, 9 times out of 10, they're sent to the inbox. We would have to record at home. So we're left to our own devices to figure out and interpret what the writer's intent is, what the client's looking for in terms of a voice. I've never really said to myself, this is just more of a game voice or an anime voice. It's all characters. Just like if it were a play or if it were a movie, everything is a character. Even a narrator or an announcer is a character. If you think of it in those terms, you're just kind of going into the mindset of, all right, what is this character call for? I look at the audition script. I see a picture of the character, maybe an age, and a paragraph describing, how that character fits into the world of the story. And then the audition script has like 4, 5, 6 lines that differ in emotional intent. Anger, calmness, rage, happiness, narration, maybe some battle sounds. Certainly I've had more than my fair share of video game auditions wanting to hear, well, what does this character sound like when he's throwing a punch or getting punched or death scream or whatnot.
So, back in the old days, one of the great voice actors out there, Mel Blanc, used to do everything. Who are your inspirations for that type of work? Was that somebody you looked at and be like, hey, this is a great thing, or did you have somebody else in mind?
Funny you mentioned Mel Blanc. That is the #1 reason that's what planted the seed. I 8 or 9 years old watching Looney Tunes, and my dad says, there was this genius guy named Mel Blanc. He used to work in radio, and then he became a TV star with other people, and then he fell into this and started voicing all these different characters. Now, growing up and listening back to the different characters, yeah, you can kind of tell it's the same person, but the genius of it is in the performance. He committed so much into giving very unique character traits to each of those, Bugs Bunny, Yosemite Sam, Sylvester, all of those classic characters. You could tell the instant you heard them, without even seeing them, who you were hearing. So that's what really kicked it off. And then now it's just like I have to pinch myself because people I've looked up to for decades, I've had the honor of meeting and hanging out with and even training with people like Charlie Adler, who did Cow and Chicken. I've met and gone to cons with Billy West from Futurama and Ren and Stimpy. Rob Paulson and Maurice LaMarche, who are Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs. Ninja Turtles, all these things that happened decades ago and are probably a lot of you guys' childhood. It's like, man, this is so wild. I grew up idolizing these people because I wanted to do what they're doing, and they're so talented, and now I get to meet them at conventions or see them on social media. I think social media is just a great way to discover the voices behind the people that you admire.
And thankfully we're on social media right now, so the audience here can ask questions for you. Anybody has a question for Kyle? This young lady right in front of me.
Yeah.
Hi there. Well, first of all, did you go to Disney lately? Because that looks a lot like Disney.
Yes, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. This comes from his exclusive store right inside the front entrance of Disney's California Adventure.
Nice.
This for those who don't know, Oswald is a Disney character. He was before Mickey Mouse even. He was before Disney was the thing. Walt Disney was working for Universal Pictures, and he was contracted to create this character. And when they wouldn't pay him any more money, he said, fine. He goes off, creates Mickey Mouse, and the rest is history. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead with your question.
No, it's fine. When you're voicing a character, what do you have to mentally prepare yourself and also have actual medical things on standby, or like water and stuff like that?
Yeah, luckily with all the recording booths, there's plenty of bottled water, plenty of hot tea and honey, and there's things like Chinese cough syrup and herbal throat lozenges and throat sprays that are there, or the actor can bring them themselves to the session if there's a lot of screaming involved. What was the first part of your question again? I'm sorry?
Like medical supplies, like Advil, if you like scream yourself a headache.
No, I haven't really had that problem. Of course, working on Dragon Ball Z was kind of a primer to fast forward a decade where I'm mostly doing video games where I scream at the top of my voice, you know, the yelling, shouting, and then my voice sounds ragged at the end of, you know, a 2-hour session or a 4-hour session. Those things help get you through it, but your voice still sounds a little shredded afterwards. That becomes a problem when you have another session the next day or later the same day, and then you just end up having to reschedule it because it's like you just can't sound normal because your voice is totally trashed. In a perfect world, you'd be scheduling those throaty, yelling, screamy sessions on a Friday, be able to mend over the weekend, and then get back to work for the other stuff.
On a related note, has there ever gotten a role due to your voice being hoarse or different, that's the voice that they wanted you to use?
I'm trying to remember because I've auditioned sick, and I'm trying to remember if I was ever hired based on a sick audition and then having to imitate that. There may have been a time or two where they said, it's like, well, you sound a little huskier in the audition than what you're doing now. It's like, oh yeah, sorry, it was first thing in the morning, or I was just like, I was feeling under the weather. So, because yeah, your voice goes down a couple octaves when you're sicker. The rasp thing comes easy to me. I could throw that on there. I mean, that's where Gohan comes from on Dragon Ball Z. He was a very raspy voice as a child, first voiced by Stephanie Nadolny and nowadays by Colleen Clinkenbeard, that when time came to audition for that character, I looked at him and said, all right, so I'm going to give him some rasp because he had that as a kid. I'm going to have him keep that quality. So I just did that, and that was pretty easy to do. And then, you know, sometimes you get directed in the booth to say, all right, pitch it up, pitch it down, add more gravel to it, or make it more clear, and then we move with that.
Does anybody else have a question for Kyle? I have this young lady right in front of me.
Hello.
Hi.
I noticed you also voiced Aizen from Bleach and Suguro from Blue Exorcist. What made you go for those roles?
Funny enough, the studios came to me. I mean, once I'm on a call list for studios, they send me who they think I'm appropriate to read for. Once in a while, the studios will send me an audition that just has all the male characters and says, pick 3 or 4. Now, I remember in the case of Bleach, they said, pick whoever you want to read for, and Aizen was one of them. Now, I didn't pick the show. I picked it because I felt that I could dial into that character very easily. You know, the audition site said he was mysterious, yet friendly. You couldn't quite tell what his motivations were, and then I immediately thought of a voice that was just very easy to do and very calm and collective, where it could be like creepier if that nice, trustworthy voice were like this, but you'd be about to slice your throat or something. You know, it's like, and sure enough, without hearing the Japanese performance, that's what they did on their show. And I didn't do any research other than, you know, I went to the audition and they said, here, while you're waiting in the lobby, pick some characters to read for. So I read for that. I read for Ganju Shiba. And Ganju, to me, seemed kind of like Patrick Warburton, so I gave him that sort of sound. Yes. Only not quite as dumb, but in that same vein where he's kind of cocky but kind of silly and goofy at the same time and all that. But with Blue Exorcist, they sent me the audition site specifically to read for that character. I didn't go into the studio to be auditioned for that. They left me to my own to record that from home, and I got lucky, as usually the case. This is one of those skills where, I mean, I don't get to choose what I read for. All I can do is take the skills I've learned through the years, through the acting classes, and I mean, yeah, you have to have natural talent to do this, but you take the acting classes and the workshops to help hone those skills so that you can do things like record on your own at home without any help from the directors or casting people to kind of pull a performance out of you. I mean, everyone you audition for, they're rooting for you. They're not like rolling their eyes going, oh God, another audition. They want to just have their eyes blown out of their sockets, or their ears in the case of voice acting. So yeah, with that, I don't remember reading for any other characters. I lucked out with that.
So I want to get a follow-up on the technical aspects of it. You said sometimes you're able to record at home. If
Yeah.
somebody wants to be a voice actor, what kind of stuff do they need at home to do that kind of thing?
Well, thanks to technology, microphones are cheaper than ever because usual professional microphones have to go in through what's called a preamplifier, or preamp for short. That's what powers it. The microphone by itself doesn't have any batteries or any power source to work off of, so it has to be plugged into an amplifier like a guitar does. But nowadays they have USB microphones, which are just plugged directly into the USB port of your desktop, your tablet, or now they even make ones that plug directly into iPhones and iPads. So now it's cheaper than ever. You can spend $100 or less if you look on Amazon. I have a $230 mic that goes directly into my iPhone called an Apogee mic. Got it at the Apple Store. There's other companies like Blue and Marshall and Samson, some of which you can walk into Best Buy or Guitar Center. Do some research, but look at the ones that are getting the really good reviews. You have to have a good kind of soundproof area of your living space to record in. Typically a closet is the best because the clothes and the boxes in your closet absorb sound. Now, where you see me seated right now is my dining area. To my right is my kitchen. To my left is my living room. And I have wood floors. This is scary because wood floors normally just bounce sound like crazy and it sounds all echoey and everything. Mine, for whatever reason, doesn't. Now, I have a lot of stuff in the apartment. Maybe that's what's absorbing it. But mine is like a fluke. But yeah, you need a quiet space to record in. You need to invest, couple $100 in a nice USB mic. You have to learn editing. There's a free program called Audacity. And there's tutorials on YouTube and online that help you work how to digitally edit and save these files as MP3 so you can drag and drop them as email attachments and so on.
Cool.
That's the technical aspect of it.
Yes, that's exactly what I needed to know. Anybody else has a question for Kyle? This young lady right here.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, how to think about my question. Okay. Have you ever done like characters that like yell or scream?
Oh my God, I've done that since Dragon Ball Z. Ryu in Street Fighter screams a lot. Kamina in Gurren Lagann, he screamed a lot. I've got characters in all sorts of games where I'm not even the main character and all I do is scream. I'm in Titanfall as one of the background soldiers that are screaming about what's happening on screen while you're playing. And I had to do like 16 hours of nothing but Battlefield type chatter. It totally shredded my voice. But I'm in it. So, I mean, I've done that for many, many years. I figured it's just par for the course. If you're going to be a voiceover actor in Los Angeles, a lot of the character-based stuff you're going to read for it requires a lot of shouting, whether it's RPG games or first-person shooters or honestly anything at this point.
Like, is it always like hard on your throat, like when you have to like do a
Oh, yeah.
character that yells or screams?
Yeah, there's some people that probably have done deals with Satan to maintain their voice. D. Bradley Baker is one of those unreal aliens on Earth who can do creature sounds for hours, and he controls his breathing and placement within his voice and his diaphragm. So when he does these creature sounds, he can still sound the same as a normal voice after hours of doing that, whereas most people are probably going to shred their cords after a certain point. I mean, can you imagine spending even half an hour going, you do that at a certain point, it hurts to talk, and then you start sounding like this. So you have to nurse your voice in between takes. There's lots of hot tea, pour lots of honey in there. Or, like I was saying earlier, Chinese cough syrup. If you type Chinese cough syrup in Amazon, the first search result is this magical elixir called Ninjiang Pa Po Kwa. And that stuff is got honey in it, and loquat and other herbs and natural things. It's meant as a cough syrup, but it also soothes your vocal cords and helps you get through screamy, shouty stuff.
I know like some of my favorite voice actors that you had mentioned, thank you. Because like Rob Paulson and Marisa Marsh, they're like my favorites.
Yeah.
I love them, like I'm they're like dear to me because they've always like picked in the brain and because I know that Marie Samar, she did this one character on this show called Kids Next Door, and he's like because he did father on Kids Next Door.
Oh, I remember.
And like this character like yelled and screamed like, and every time he'd get mad, like he'd like flame up.
And he'd
or
get
whatever,
angry.
and he'd get angry.
A lot.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
Just like, did you cringe?
oh my god. Sorry, because like I've like never met a voice actor before, so I'm like trying to keep myself together here.
No, I'm so blessed to do what I do, and I'm so thankful to do what I do because, you know, I'm one of those people that just, and I encourage everyone in this room, no matter what your goals are professionally, stick to that. You know, whatever you want to do, if you want to work in the creative arts, if you want to be a surgeon, if you want to be president, whatever it is you want to do in life, take steps to that daily, no matter how small, and stick to it and say, no matter what happens to me, I'm going to do this. And that's what it took to succeed for me. I picked up and left Texas, go to the West Coast. I was scared. It was the scariest thing I had to do, was leave everyone and everything I knew and go into the unknown to chase my dream. And then I was broke for years doing it, but my resolve was solid as ever. I said, I'm going to do this. I feel that in my soul, in my heart, that I am meant to do this. So I stuck with it. When I had money I could put aside to take an acting class, it's what I did. And then that kind of came back to me in rewards of more audition opportunities or meeting new network contacts. And then eventually that blossomed into more work when I continued to audition and hone my craft. So, I mean, ultimately, I think everyone's end goal should be find your passion, and if you can make a living doing what you love, there's nothing better. It's not about being rich or famous. It's about being happy doing something that gives you pleasure.
So speaking of end goals, is there a character that you see out there right now that you're like, I want to play that guy?
Man, I think it would be so cool to be Batman, but my big but to that answer is big butts. No, I think the animated voice Kevin Conroy, that's Batman.
Amazing.
And I don't want to ever be compared to that because there's nothing I can do to top that. It's just personally because I've loved Batman ever since those first animated, well, not the first, but Batman the Animated Series came out in the 90s. I was in college at the time, and I remember being blown away by not only visually, because it was anime inspired in the way it was done, but the vocal performances then. Of course, Mark Hamill, you know, people first knew as Luke Skywalker, and now, you know, he's totally reinvented himself as a voiceover guy. And Joker, I mean, another one that would be a fantastic role to inhabit, but man, can you really follow that performance? I think the people that are picked for these various big roles in pop culture are chosen because of their acting skills. And I've never said to myself, you know what, I can do better than that. So I leave it to that. I could die happy being a bit part on Star Wars or Star Wars, you know, Rebels, or something, you know, something of that, because I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I love Batman. I love anything animated. I would love to. My end goal is probably to be the next character that's not the next big SpongeBob SquarePants yet. Maybe he's just not invented. You know, right now I'm known as the English voice of a lot of these Japanese characters. I would love to be attached to a product and be like, Kyle is the voice for this character. I mean, that's just a goal. I'm not negating anything I've done before that because I'm so proud of what I've been able to do, and I feel so lucky because I've been a huge animation fan and game fan for all my life, and now I'm working in that industry. It's fantastic. But never become complacent. You always want more. You always want the next level. So yeah, I'm keeping my options open, my mind open to everything, and always be grateful for whatever does land in my lap.
Alright, so obviously, since you mentioned Batman, and all the fans here want to hear a Batman, can you give us a quick little Batman for the audience right here?
Oh God, that would just sound like Ryu for Street Fighter. It's like, the answer lies in the heart of battle. No. It's just a low, sort of ominous thing. it would just be like that. And when he's Bruce Wayne, he's just a little more chipper. Hi, how's it going? Well, something like that. Now, I've had opportunities to read for Batman. I've had opportunities to read for Batman, and I thought it was a little bit wonky because I thought, okay, well maybe they're going to get Kevin Conroy for this, but sometimes it's a thing where I'm sure it's a money issue, and it's like I'll go ahead and read for it because maybe it's an audio like a motion comic. It's that thing that hasn't really taken off because honestly, it's rarely worth it. I keep on hoping that a motion comic will be like the next generation, this generation's version of a radio play. The old style radio shows were also a big influence on my life too. The Shadow, War of the Worlds, stuff like that. I think melding that with comic books, if you get the acting right, that would be a really cool thing to see happen and blossom.
So who else has a question for Kyle? I'm going down, this young gentleman right here.
Have you ever had a chance to do other video games besides Real from Street Fighter, like other fighting games, Mortal Kombat, Tekken?
I have read for those. I'm a custom voice called Cold Assassin in Soul Calibur 5. Soul Calibur is actually my favorite fighting game. I've read for other characters in Street Fighter, but of course, you can't really be more than one, so I feel lucky just to get that one. Haven't read for like King of Fighters or some of the more obscure ones. Mortal Kombat I read for. Didn't get to read. No, I did get to read for Injustice, but I didn't get cast. I mean, I'm very lucky to even just audition for these things because you got to be where the work is. If I lived in Texas, I wouldn't have the opportunity to even read for Street Fighter. So. Even that is an accomplishment, and I always say to myself, okay, it wasn't meant to be, at least I got to read for it.
So, when you have all these voices going around your head, do you actually think as the character sometimes in certain situations?
Not in everyday life. I mean, I just go into that mode whenever it's time to sit down and record auditions, or I'm at a session and the director says, all right, we're doing this character. And it's like, and then he gives me some bullet points on the story, where we are as a character. Maybe we'll dial in the voice, or I'll do the Pete and repeat thing where they give me the reference from the previous session, or we craft a brand new version of the voice. I've had that where I've been cast based on my audition from home. I go in, I'm hired, and then they say, okay, here, listen to this, now do something different. That happens too. It's a little bit awkward, but okay, at least they still brought me in because they knew I could do something different and bring something different to it.
Who else has? This gentleman over. Oh, this young lady. She's been having her hand up. It's okay. It's all right. Good.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm just a little
You can do it.
nervous. So, and you said something about the voice actors that you met, right? Rob Paulson and E. Bradley Baker. I remember them from my childhood too. And Maniacs. And Maniacs, E. Bradley Baker from SpongeBob and so on. So, about blank. Looney Tunes. When did you see some of the episodes?
So the question is, when did you see? At what point did you see all that no blank stuff? At what point in your career did you see that no blank stuff?
Oh yeah. Well, I was a kid watching that stuff. So I was growing up in the '70s, and I was there when Star Wars first came out in '77. Like, I was there. They saw it opening weekend. One of those guys. But anyway, cartoons. Yeah. That all that stuff. I was watching mostly Warner Brothers stuff, but I of course saw Hanna-Barbera, like Scooby-Doo and all these different things. Fascinated by it. Anime. The word anime didn't exist yet. We had shows like Speed Racer, star blazers and battle the planets. Once Star Wars took over pop culture, then they started importing shows from Japan and redubbing them into English and even altering storylines to make it more sci-fi-ish because of the Star Wars craze. And I was into that when high school came. When I was in high school in the early 80s, Robotech came out, and Robotech was 3 different anime series spliced together and given a whole new storyline. That's pretty wild. So I've been watching these things my whole life.
There's one thing I wanted to mention, as you were saying, as you are an actor, that you actually mentioned a lot of times you went to auditions and you didn't get the part. How much of rejection is part of an actor's life?
Rejection is, God, 90% of it. Because people want to get technical. What do you do for a living? I audition. That's basically what I do every day. I'll check my inbox. I'll have like 3 or 4, sometimes half a dozen auditions, and I'll sit here, record it, send it off, and go about my day. I can't sit there and go, oh, I hope I get hired for this, even though it's perfectly human and normal to do that. But the right mindset to have is do the best you can in the moment and then move on to the next one, the next opportunity. Because chances are you'll just go crazy wishing something that's going to happen that chances are you're not, because you're reading against dozens, if not maybe hundreds of other people for these parts. And there's only a handful of parts to go around. The opportunity is plentiful for actors and voiceover actors to read for these parts, but there's only so many parts. So more often than not, I could read 100 auditions, but only get hired for 2 or 3 of them. Now, I think the normal reaction would be like, well, if you're not getting hired that often, shouldn't you consider a different profession? It's like, no, that's par for the course. Everyone, when I first started looking into voiceover professionally, said, no, your batting average is going to be pretty, you're going to audition for this much and maybe get hired this much. But that's just what it is. It's part of the game. And you just have to get used to that. If you're negative about it, and if you're always down on yourself and always doubting yourself, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but tweaking your mindset will definitely help you in spades professionally. I think what you put out there is what comes back to you. I'm a firm believer in that. So I think if you have a positive outlook about your abilities, your talent, your skills, and say, you know what, it'll happen when it's meant to happen. If I'm not hired on this role, it wasn't meant to be. It just meant the next thing's going to be all the sweeter. And it really, every time I get hired, it feels like, it was worth the struggle. It was worth all the blood, sweat, and tears of doubting myself and thinking, okay, maybe I won't be able to make rent this month or whatever. I know eventually that something I read for, whether it's going to be weeks ago or sometimes months ago, I'll get a call or email out of the blue going, hey, you're hired for this project. I go, what? What project? That's a first world problem. I audition for so many things, I forget what I auditioned for. Which is also why it's helpful when they play the audition back when I get hired. They go, what did I do? Oh, here you go. Here's what you did. We want you to do this. Or hear that? We want to tweak it.
So this gentleman's been waiting for a while. What do you touch the apricot?
First off, big fan. So I'm looking at some of these characters, and I'm wondering, have you ever been really attached to a character, and then we're very sad when they were killed off? Well, I mean, you're not getting, you lose your job basically. But then, have you ever been like actually sad because it's like a part of you died?
Me.
Yeah, certainly Kamina and Gurren Lagann. I mean, he's there for 8 episodes, but his spirit's there through the whole the whole series of Gurren Lagann. And I got immediately attached, and I was warned not to. Even before I recorded the first episode, they said, all right, he is a main character, but by episode 8, sorry. And then it's like, oh, okay. So that helped me channel some real emotion. So I felt loss when that character passed away. And I always give 110% anyway in committing to a role regardless. Whether it's someone that's on screen for 5 seconds and then he screams and dies, or someone who's there for 300 plus episodes. Go on.
And Gohan meant probably the most to me because that is the show that led to everything else. That sprung off of that. And I was a huge fan of Dragon Ball Z before I even got to work on it. Dragon Ball Z first came to the States in '95 when it was first dubbed in Canada into English. And they started rerunning the first two seasons of that over and over on independent stations, and then Cartoon Network, Toonami. And then it became the #1 show on Toonami. Then we got to the part where Gohan goes to high school. I take over that role, and then oh my gosh, suddenly I'm going to conventions, and suddenly I'm signing all these trading cards, and the internet starts becoming more of a big thing. And man, it's just blossomed all off of that, and it was surreal. Not only to be my first big professional dive into the pool of voiceover, it was also just like, wow, I'm a fan of this, and now I get to be a part of it too.
Just there you go. So the gentleman had a question.
Yeah, also the same. Okay. So out of all like the shows and project and but stuff you made, right? Like, which one took the most effort to like what character?
Okay, well, which show?
Out of all
the characters that you've done, which one took the most effort out of you?
Took the most effort out of me?
Yes.
I don't remember a character doing it, but certainly physically, you know, thrashing your voice after screaming and all that. I remember working on Titanfall and even some of the Street Fighter stuff where my voice was just totally shot. I couldn't even talk afterwards. It's never, for me, it's not difficult to getting into the character. And I don't even have to necessarily channel real life events into it. I'm not really method that way. I just try to just go into the mindset of the character, and I can either give what the director is looking for, or I need more direction. So I try to do that as efficiently as possible, and you know, sometimes we do that before we're even off and running recording, or sometimes we'll record a handful of lines. The director will go, okay, now I think you've fallen into the groove of the character. Let's go back and record those early lines to make sure we're consistent, which totally makes sense. I remember going back and watching some of that early Dragon Ball Z stuff and thinking, oh my God, I would give anything to redub that stuff. But hopefully we'll get to do Kai and you know, the Buu saga, and I can revisit my first work professionally in Dragon Ball Z. So there's that. But the effort is, I'm so overcome with passion to hop into the booth and do anything that I'm committed to whatever it takes. If it's screaming, if it's conversation, doesn't matter what, because I love what I do.
We got one more on this side.
Yeah.
How exactly do you find the ability to develop and find a person, like a character's voice? Like what goes into creating that? Like, is there some kind of inspiration that you follow, or I'm just blown away at being able to do that kind of stuff.
Okay, well thank you. Usually the auditions will have a picture of the character, but they don't always do. What they will, at the very least, have is a description about them. You know, say war-torn, grizzled veteran. And I say, all right, I can tie these into basic archetypes. You know, you either from movies or other games. You could think about what did those type of characters, an angsty teen, or a war-torn, grizzled veteran, or a politician all bloated and full of himself. I mean, you know these things from either pop culture media or real life. And you can take from that and help them to craft your performance. And sometimes people will do impressions of other celebrities and stuff to create and put their own spin on it. They could say, I could do my worst Christopher Walken and mesh it with something else and create a brand new character. And that's why it works, not because it's just a word verbatim strict impression of somebody, but it's because that actor heard something and made it their own. So sometimes I've done that. In my roles, I've taken obscure little bit part characters in live action movies and say, oh, I made it. That'd be cool to use sometime, and then I did that on Dragon Ball Z. I took something from a classic Stanley Kubrick film called A Clockwork Orange, very violent movie, where this kid, oh, I see you've seen it. The main character, Malcolm McDowell, he often skips school. So the truant officer goes to his house It says, "Oh, Alex, looks like you're skipping school again, yes?" Well, I took that character and I didn't put my own spin on it, but I got to have fun in Dragon Ball Z with this bad guy in Dragon Ball, the first series, to be like a henchman of this character named Boss Rabbit. And his henchman dressed up in big bunny costumes, and he wore black glasses, and the director, Chris Abbott, says, "Do whatever you want with this guy." So I did, yes, accidentally tell your friends. So I like having freedom. I don't normally have that sort of freedom to just make it your own. But yeah, I've pulled from that before.
So I got another question from the audience.
Hi, first of all, you have the most epic Ryu voice I've ever heard. And
Thank
and also, when you're voicing for an English dub for an anime or anything from Japan, is there any moments where you can't just help but laugh at the line that you're saying or how it sounds?
Oh, sure, because there's no rehearsal or prep time or anything. We're not sent the scripts in advance. We are reading it cold. We are there. This is why being a good actor is so important in working in voice acting or any kind of acting. You got to be a good actor. And in the case of voiceover, you don't have to memorize dialogue. So no, they don't bother sending you the episodes ahead of time and all that because time is money. They tell you what you absolutely need to know in the session right before you record. So I'm a blank slate. All I know when I show up for a session is the time and the place, maybe the project. Sometimes they don't even say what I'm working on. They say, "We need you at such and such at 9 a.m. on Monday." Like, okay, I'm there. I'm excited. I'm just excited to be working. And then I go and it's like, "All right, we're recording on code name strawberry cucumber biscuit." I'm like, oh, okay.
That is
It's
something
one of those
Japanese.
top secret game titles that they're not going to be able to tell me what it is. And then until I start reading the dialogue, and then I can find, clues in that. It's like, "Well, Ken, we have to train in the Satsui no Hado," and like, well, what? Oh, okay, I guess I know what this is. But that just happened to be because I'm a fan of this stuff too.
On the same line about not knowing exactly what the project is, one of my favorite voice actors is Frank Welker. And
Yes.
I know that he is famous for doing not only voices, but sound effects. Is that something
Yeah.
that's also big in the voice actor industry, just doing sound effects instead of any regular voices?
Well, people like him and D. Bradley Baker have kind of cornered the market on creature sounds and animal noises. If you go to, like D. Bradley, like Frank Welker works so much, he didn't even have an agent. He doesn't, they just call him and he works. So, but D. Bradley Baker, you can go to his website and he's got voiceover demos for individual creatures. It's pretty fascinating. So usually they call upon either one of those guys, and there's probably a handful of others too. And I don't mean any disrespect to them, but the most prominent ones I know of are Frank Welker and D. Bradley Baker. They'll typically go to that if they want those sort of creature sounds. I've been hired to do creature sounds before on various games, but my voice blows out in no time. So I don't blame them. I don't take it personally when I don't get called back for it. And honestly, I like having my voice.
Does anybody else have this young lady right here? A follow-up question?
Yeah, first of all, have you ever been notified that when they reuse voice clips for your characters?
Sometimes they will give me a heads up. Like on Dragon Ball Z, I basically signed a contract saying, you're not going to get any residuals from this, but we have the right to use your voice in perpetuity, forever, for everything, whatever we want. Like, I don't get a slice of the profits from my voice being put into the action figures. Some of those have my voice clip on them. And, yeah, that's a downer, but the trade-off is I got my first waltz into the professional voiceover world on a show I'm a huge fan of. So you take the good with the bad. Sometimes, yeah, there are reusage things. I've worked on other projects like Command and Conquer, where I've done some basic command type voices, and then they'll pay me a session fee for that. And session fees vary. They could be a couple $100 an hour, they could be a flat rate. They gave me a reusage fee because they said, we're going to re-release this in expansion packs and put on different platforms. So they gave me like another session fee on top of that. So that was nice. But every project is kind of unique that way. Sometimes you stand to make more in the end, and others
it's just too bad. With Wreck-It Ralph, I got to be on there as a cameo as Ryu from Street Fighter. And even though I'm on there for 10 seconds, every few months, Disney sends me a check, and I'm like, ooh, sweet. That's awesome.
Yeah. Next one. Have you ever been snubbed by a role? Like, you take a role and you play it for a while and then someone else takes it?
It's not that they take it, but they for whatever reason decide to replace me with someone else. Yeah, that's happened before. I've recorded on anime. Gunslinger Girl, I played like a mob boss or something, and I was proud and excited, and then it came out, and then it wasn't me. It's like, but that's okay. Star Wars The Old Republic, I voiced a Jedi character, and then when it came out 3 years after I recorded it, wasn't me. The character was there, but it wasn't me. Yet, I was paid, and I was credited. What? Yeah, it's just...
No applause for getting paid?
Yeah! Hey, my name's attached to something I'm not on. What? Same thing with Sonic Generations. I played Big the Cat in that, and they had a whole playable level with Big the Cat, and it's not there. Again, my name's in the credits. Okay.
So when you do video games, have you ever played the game to see yourself and then talk to yourself as yourself?
Yeah, well, I don't talk to myself, but I think it's fun to be a playable character. I think it's a real hoot to play Street Fighter.
Yeah,
I always play as Ryu. I absolutely do that. I'll play Kiba, Naruto, and Gohan on Dragon Ball Z, and I'll play my characters. And sometimes I hear myself, like, I'm not playable in Titanfall, but I love that game, so I'll hear myself every 10 minutes, like, do some weird shout out of the rear speaker or something like, what? Oh, hey, I heard me. Cool.
Does anybody recognize your voice when you're talking to them on a day-to-day basis?
Someone recognized me by voice at an IHOP once. They were sitting like one table over. I was just with a friend and they heard my speaking voice and they didn't recognize me visually. Sometimes people have said, hey, I saw you at a con, aren't you so-and-so? That happens from time to time. But this guy purely heard my voice and said, no, I don't go to cons, I just know your voice. You're Kyle Hebert. I was like, oh yeah. Like, wow, I'm honored, I think. No, I mean, it's cool to have anonymity because I know that TMZ's not going to follow me to the grocery store. I feel sorry for celebrities, you know, that's a trade-off for fame and fortune is like you can't live a normal life at that point. Everyone's trying to get into your business and everything. I do feel sorry. It's like you learn that actors are all crazy. It's like, well, no wonder they're crazy. They're driven crazy by their success, which is unfortunate. I mean, there's a handful of people I hear Jim Carrey literally is off his rocker, but he also seems very, very humble because there was a point in his life where he was completely homeless. And he says this very, very inspiring stuff. He's given like speeches at graduations and whatnot. And the guy seems very grounded. He comes from a really, really good place. And Robin Williams, rest in peace. You know, another great humble person who truly remained, you know, normal. He struggled with depression, of course, but he remained fairly grounded. He didn't let it go to his head, success go to his head, and let fame of the paparazzi and all that stuff just drive him into a life of solitude and all that. I'm sure that contributed somewhat, but yeah, I don't envy the life of the famous.
Let's got one more question from the audience.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm a huge Ryu fan. I'm main Ryu in the majority of the Street Fighter series. I would like to hear you say Shoryuken.
Okay. Shoryuken!
Yay!
We have about 7 minutes left, so I want to make sure people know what are you doing now? What's coming up for you? What can we see you in?
That you can say about.
That you can say about.
Right.
Especially video games.
You know,
Why don't
arrested.
you say that? Because I record for a lot of stuff, and we have to sign what's called a non-disclosure agreement, which means we can't talk about it until it comes out. So while I've recorded for games for the past couple weeks, I can't say a word, unfortunately. But when it comes out, or when I do talk about a project, I have been given permission to do that, and usually I wait till it's out. But sometimes I record on projects, and there's none lately, otherwise you'd see me talking about it right now.
or the client goes, yeah, go ahead and announce that you're recording this today. We need all the promotion on social media we can get. But right now, nothing, mum's the word. I'm just happy to be working, but yeah, there's some exciting stuff on the horizon. More games, more anime.
Hey Kyle, can we ask like if they were like AAA games? I mean, so we can kind of get a feel, or you can't say?
Kingdom Hearts 3 specifically?
No comment?
Okay. So yes.
I've got stuff of all different types. I'm doing everything from lead characters to recurring characters to bit parts in all mediums.
Excellent.
So speaking of social media, if people are watching this video on YouTube, where can they contact you? Where can they find out more about you?
At Kyle Hebert, as is K-Y-L-E-H-E-B-E-R-T. So it's spelled like Hebert, but it's pronounced Hebert, like Hebert is attacking Leo DiCaprio. So yeah, and KyleHebert.com has my credits and appearances, so all the next conventions I'll be going to, projects and stuff. But normally people can interact with me on Twitter and Facebook.com/KyleHebertVO. Stuff like that. I'm at Kyle Hebert on Instagram. Follow me. I like posting about, my hobbies. I'm a big movie fan. I love comic book films. I love horror. I love vinyl. I'm usually taking pictures of things I enjoy. I love the horror film The Witch, so I just got The Witch soundtrack on vinyl. I love all this stuff.
So we have 4 minutes left. So I'm gonna throw out. You said you're a fan of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Just about everybody has seen the new Star Wars movie.
No.
One guy didn't see the Star Wars movie? One guy didn't see it. So spoiler free, what did you think of the Star Wars movie? The newest one?
A fantastic return to form. I actually consider Force Awakens to be better than Return of the Jedi. But Empire and A New Hope are still better. They're still the best. They can't. You wouldn't have that world without those films. Apologies to those who like the prequels. I'm sorry, they're not for me. There's some good stuff in it, but they're not the Star Wars I grew up on. And this one seemed like a return to that. It's a good blend of nostalgia with the older characters, and then they're introducing really strong, exciting new characters that I'm excited to see the journey of. So I myself personally really enjoyed the new one.
All right. I would have a debate with you at some other time about that, but I appreciate your thoughts on that. We are almost out of time, so I want to
thank him for not bailing on us by getting hurt?
Well, we want to thank you for coming in. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate you being at the Emcon 6th Annual Anime
sure.
Fest. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with the audience before we sign off?
I want to thank all the fans out there for supporting anime, manga, Japanese pop culture, or pop culture in general. Without you guys, we wouldn't have the cool jobs that we do in the creative side of it, behind the camera, behind the mics, and all that. So thank you so much, and I consider myself a fan as well. I'm with you guys. So continue to support the industry. If you're watching anime, support it with your purchases, your official downloads and streams on places like Crunchyroll, Funimation, Viz.com, when the DVDs come out, or Netflix and Hulu. Support them that way. Watch out for the pirates out there, because, if you're watching pirated stuff or on pirate sites, the profits don't go back to the creators, they just go to the people hosting the websites, and that's not very fair. So think of it from the perspective of if that were your show, if that your product, would you want it just out there on the internet when you work so hard on it and put your time and energy and money into that? So just think about that hard, and I thank everyone for being true fans who spend their hard-earned money on these things, and on the merchandise and the movies and the TV shows and everything, and the games. Thank you so much for investing in the entertainment world, and I'll continue being a part of it as long as I can, because I love it, and I love you guys. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. All right, Kyle Hebert, thank you very much on It Came From the Radio. Like I said, you can follow us on Facebook at It Came From Radio, follow us on Twitter at Came From Radio, and we will see you next time. Thanks again, really appreciate it.
Take care.